In today's video, once again I will go over pros and cons of characters, and in this part I talk about every single Pyro character in Genshin Impact. And I will also be making another video for Cryo in the upcoming days, and you can check out the other 5 videos for GEO-HYDRO-DENDRO, ANEMO and ELECTRO that I've already uploaded, so consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the next videos for all the elements. And a special thanks to everyone who has been supporting me in the past few days. I really appreciate it. Without wasting your time, let's start the video, starting off with one of the best Pyro units in the game, Xiangling. For her pros, you can get a free copy of this character by clearing the floor 3 of Spiral Abyss, and has a versatile role in many teams because of her amazing off-field Pyro application and great AoE potential on burst, while possessing strong multiple target damage in a circular area, and she has a lot of free-to-play valuable options such as the Catch and Dragon's Bane. She's really good when you pair her up with Kazuha, Bennett and Xingqiu. For cons, her elemental burst costs 80 energy, meaning you need energy recharge stats either by using emblem sets, weapons, or by the artifact substats. And her elemental skill, Goba, has a limited and consistent targeting, which can affect the energy regeneration as well, and you need higher constellations for her true value, but overall a fantastic unit that is required for every account, no matter if you're a beginner or you've been playing since launch. Next one is Xinyan. For her pros, she can cast a shield for protection and has relatively short on-field requirement and can serve the role of pyro battery in some situations. And for cons, mid to high energy recharge requirement, and her skill cooldown is fairly long as well, and pyro application is tied to her shield and reliant on Constellation 2 to be slightly useful, but overall not a great character. And of course you can make any character work in Genshin Impact, but this one is just not worth the investment unless you really like her design and gameplay. Next character, Yanfei. For her pros, she can be a solid option if you got her semi early on in the game and not reliant on constellations to do a decent damage, and fast pyro application that can be used by other units to trigger reactions. And since she is a catalyst user, all of her attacks apply pyro, which is good but can be a double-edged sword in some cases. For cons, can be too reliant on Xingqiu and Bennett to have a good damage, and cannot easily cancel the charge attacks with the long animation, making her vulnerable to incoming attacks, and energy regeneration of her isn't the best, which means for utilizing her burst, you will need to keep energy recharge in mind while building her artifacts. Next one, Thoma. For pros, he has a good shield that provides great interruption resistance and has the second strongest shield in the game. If you don't have Xiangling, he can be a good substitute and needs low investment for shield support build. And for cons, high energy costs and long cooldowns, and limited number of teams where he can be the best in slot shielder option, and shield duration can be short without the right team management, which can make him tricky to use. Next character, Amber. She can dish out a good damage when it comes to a single target DPS, and can be flexible with a few different team comps, and can be solid in the beginning of the game where you don't have a lot of pyro units available, but for cons, has a clunky and slow gameplay that can be improved with constellations, but you know how the constellations is, especially for characters that will never get featured with raid ups in event banners, so overall shouldn't rely on having multiple constellations for her, even though I personally somehow have 3 of them and I wonder why. Next one, Yoimiya. For her pros, she's a strong single target DPS, easy and fun to play, and has a good range on her attacks, and flexible artifact choice and team compositions, and has access to use free-to-play options while gaining a lot of value out of them. And for cons, as a 5-star pyro DPS, we have better options in the game like Hu Tao, and her performance isn't that great when it comes to facing multiple enemies at once, since she lacks any AoE damage. And she can get easily interrupted without a shielder on the team, which can significantly cause DPS loss in the long run. But if you like her playstyle and already figured out a way to use her best for your account, then by all means, she's a good character for your account. Next one is the latest pyro unit that has been added into the game, Lyney. For his pros, he's great at dealing pyro damage since his scaling is fairly high, does not require to rely on reactions to deal great damage on his own, and has self-healing and a good taunt to deal even more damage. But for cons, loses HP per every charge shot, and passive talent may result in party lacking elemental reactions, since having another pyro units alongside him limits the team reaction potential, and quite expensive to build since he uses all parts of his kit to deal damage, meaning you need all 3 of his talents upgraded, and you may require a shielder to help with interruption resistance, which he requires to maximize his usage of his charge shot attacks. Next one, Klee. For her pros, she can deal a good amount of pyro damage with decent scaling, can set up traps for smaller units which needs to rely on ANEMO characters like Kazuha or Venti to concentrate them in a smaller area to deal more damage. But for cons, her supportive capabilities and most of her value is locked behind constellations, and her best in slot 4-star weapon was in a limited time event that isn't available anymore, and her attacks have short range, making positioning hard, and you will require a shielder to keep her alive since she needs a long on field time and is vulnerable to interruption, and she lacks base HP and base defense, meaning she can easily die. Our next character is Diluc. For her pros, easy and dynamic playstyle with his elemental skill and normal attacks being able to combo together to deal a good blunt plus pyro damage, and quite durable and doesn't require too much stamina on his attacks, and can be swapped out without losing pyro infusion. And for cons, he is reliant on units like Bennett for his damage, and compared to some other characters can't be a hyper carry since he has lower damage potential. He requires too much on-field time, which means team comps are limited to the ones with off-field support and damage capabilities, and his elemental burst pushes enemies away from you, which as a close-range DPS character doesn't make much of a sense and make it not reliable and useless unless you know you can finish them off with the burst. Next character is Dehya. For her pros, she can have multiple playstyles such as on-field, off-field, and a hybrid of both. Her off-field pyro application enables certain team comps and playstyles, and her burst has a really cool animation and a unique one at that, and provides a strong interruption resistance. But for cons, she is only available in standard banner and won't have another banner, meaning she's only obtained by losing the 50-50 or wishing on the standard banner, and she requires more constellations to deal a good amount of damage and be a DPS character, and at C0 she doesn't have that much going on for her and is underwhelming overall. And she also produces low amounts of energy particles, meaning you should keep energy recharge in mind. Next character on the list is Hu Tao. And for her pros, she's a really good pyro DPS with really high multipliers, with high base crit damage, HP, and defense, and provides crit rate for other party members, and her elemental burst can deal screenshot worthy damages and can have complicated combos with charge attack cancelling in the beginning, but is very rewarding if you learn it in the future. And for cons, she lacks AoE attack outside of her burst. Elemental skill loses HP, but you don't want her HP to be too high for her true value, so you might not want to use any healers with her, and Xiangling is the best option for her most value, and stamina issue is hurting her potential at C0, which makes her reliant on constellations of at least one, and not a good unit against enemies that can deal corrosion, since you don't want to use healers with her, and Xiangling's shield doesn't provide protection from corrosion. But if you're really looking for a great pyro DPS, especially a 5-star one at that, then look no further and try your luck on her banner. With keeping all of these in mind, she will be available in 4.1 update, and I'm wishing luck on everyone who's trying to get her. And last but not least, one of the most used characters in the entire game, Bennett. For pros, he provides powerful healing and attack buffs, very easy to build and does not require any sort of complicated playstyle to learn, and can self-cleanse. He's very flexible to fit into almost any team, and his burst cost is low, which means with the right amount of energy recharge, he can almost have 100% uptime on his burst, and he doesn't even require a lot of on-field time, and you can't go wrong with playing him in any sort of way, and doesn't really require a certain character to be useful, and in fact, other characters need him to be more useful, and you can spam his elemental skill because of his cooldown being so low, and you can generate a lot of energy particles. And for cons, there's only one Bennett in the entire Genshin Impact. Why can't we have him on both themes in the Abyss? But jokes aside, doesn't have AoE potential outside of his elemental burst, and you can't get 100% of your HP back, although it's not that big of a deal. It also restricts you to be inside of his burst circle to get the benefits from it, But overall, same as Xiangling, every account can use this character and will find it extremely helpful, and I bet everyone has a copy of this character since at the time of recording this video, everyone got one Bennett for free from the recent 4.0 event, and I would highly suggest building and using him in your teams. And with that, we briefly covered pros and cons of every single Pyro character. Don't forget to watch other parts that I've already made, and for the future video for Cryo and many other Genshin Impact related content, consider liking and subscribing, and if you have any suggestions or anything you want me to make a video about, let me know down below in the comments, and I would highly appreciate it. With all that being said, have a good day or night, and peace.